A very good evening and warm welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, brought to you by Norman Goodfellows and brought to you with the help of Advocate George Karinos, who, as with Monday, I am borrowing the office of, given that thanks to our good friends at Electricity Central, the Dan Really Likes Wine cellar is once more bathed in gloom. There is solar power arriving in the cellar in 2 weeks' time, I think. So hopefully this becomes a problem no longer. But until then, thank you, George, who I've evicted, and he's given me his study to run through a show I'm really excited about. Over the last probably 3 weeks, I have been dipping in and out of two particular books that have given me an enormous amount of joy. The first of those, Stanley Tucci and Taste. Now, you might have seen his Searching for Italy, brilliant food show and cooking show to a degree. It's as much a travel show as it is a cooking show, but it's almost just a biographical exploration of his own history as an Italian American who grew up in an Italian home where his mother was a splendid cook. She often had modest resources, but still turned out incredible meals. And the story that Stanley Tucci tells of growing up in this Italian home, of the food that was produced by his mother, and then he took off to school, and he was kind of the wealthiest guy in school because he could trade all this amazing Italian food with his assorted friends, through to becoming an actor, looking for work, living in some of the more inexpensive cafes in New York, through to his life as an actor. And there are some wonderful stories of going on set in Iceland and expecting stuff like dead puffin and rotten whale and the things many people ascribe to the culinary heritage of Iceland. He ends up having one of the finest meals of his life. And all of these stories come together. And it was a beautiful book. And while there wasn't a huge amount of wine in it, it gets passing references. The food is very much the focus for Stanley Tucci. It was fascinating nonetheless to see just how personal this culinary experience had been, how much of his life was defined by it. And that fed in to the book I'm now reading, which is A.J. Liebing, great writer for The New Yorker, who basically ate and drank himself to death. So we wouldn't encourage quite so much overindulgence, but a beautiful writer with a wonderfully acerbic touch, talking about, in particular, his time in Paris. And the book, the last one he wrote before he died in the 1960s, is called Between Meals, An Appetite for Paris, where he has wonderful reflections such as the time, and he looks back with nostalgia and a definite sense of being wistful, where people would have a dinner of a dozen oysters and an entrecote and half a side of salmon and assorted other stuff just for one person, go out and watch a show and still come back and have supper afterwards. And he said that sadly ended when French doctors discovered the liver. It's a wonderfully fun book, and it speaks a great deal about wine. There are great discussions about different champagnes and comparing Bordeaux to Burgundy, and is a Cheval Blanc better than a Petrus, and conversations that are just really fun if you're interested in wine to read about and to think about yourself. And this is a guy who's writing 60, 70 years ago. And so that in turn inspired the thought, well, let's get a few wine writers and people who talk so wonderfully about wine through their assorted media to come onto the show and find out what makes them, what drives them in a wine perspective, and what they think of the world of wine writing at the moment. So I have got two wonderful guests on the show for now, and a third one joining me a little later on as we look at wine through the written word and through media. But before we do that, before we jump into that, there is some wine news for this week. So let's have a quick look. Now, this is the Mzansi Food and Drink Show, which is touching down in 2024 in Gauteng. The launch was yesterday. Sadly, I couldn't make it. I had another event on, but it was an opportunity for the organizers to run through what is going to be happening. It is a very, very large event. There is a lot happening with it, and it just sounds like it's going to be a great deal of fun. It is June next year. It is the Kyalami Convention Center, and it is going to include all manner of celebrations in terms of food and wine and drink and chefs and anything cooking wise. These are the guys who brought you Comic Con and Decorex and Africa Travel Week. And if you've been to the Coffee and Chocolate Expo or you've been to Fire and Feast, then those are coming together along with fine food and wine, with bar and good spirits, and the Mzansi food market. So running over 3 days, there's going to be a lot happening in terms of food and wine. So although it's a long way off, it's well over a year to go, worth putting in the diary and just looking ahead to the Mzansi Food and Drink Show up in Gauteng in June 2024. And this is Salon. He's been a busy man, has Luke Dale Roberts. We spoke to him not long after lockdown, where things had been tough for one of the great shining lights of South African food and South African wine. He's now back with a new concept in the old biscuit mill. This is Salon. You can see Luke looking chiseled and rugged up in the corner there. And this is a new French-inspired concept that he is put together. He's been working on a number of concepts at the moment, but this is a new one. I think it's quite exciting in terms of what he is looking to do, where it's quite relaxed, and it's going to be he calls it a journey of flavor and style coming together. So it's going to look really good, sitting in that biscuit mill, as I said. And it's if you know what an old European style salon is, that's food, drink, people milling about, having fun. This will have Victorian style floors and a marble topped bistro table, and it looks really, really good. A bit of art deco to it all, and that is the latest from Luke Dale Roberts. It is, I think it's actually already opened. I think the first one's gone. It's not going to be inexpensive. There's a journey menu for 1,100 Rand or an Explorer for 550 a person. And it's open from Tuesday to Saturday. So if you are interested, just do a quick Google search. You'll find all the details, or salonct.co.za for the newest Luke Dale Roberts adventure. Then new wine from Radford Dale. Again, missed out. In fact, I think they're tasting this at the moment and sadly not able to be there. But this is the new Venom range in particular. We're going to have the Radford Dale guys on the show probably in the next month or so, just talking about this new wine and this new range. They've had some quite interesting developments. They bought their Elgin property not that long ago, and they have now released a couple of the new Venoms, the Shannon and the Pinotage. Headline what they're doing. It's got some really good reviews. This Jamie Good was speaking very fondly of some of the wine that they have produced. There's also a Chardonnay, which is now part of their range, but I will leave you to the tasting when it comes up on the show in a few weeks' time for a good look at them. But the new range from Radford Dale, their 2022 vintages, up and running. This is a wine that's got a little bit of heritage to it. Simonsik certainly has plenty of heritage, but they have created a Chenin Blanc legacy brand, which is the Langbult Steen. Steen, of course, what Chenin was known for so long. Langbult or Long Hill, and that's the layout of the vineyard. It is a long stretch of sloping wine, and this adds to the terroir selection. If you've had the France Malin Cape blend, or the Red Hill Pinotage, or the Merendal Syrah, or the Tiara, I had some 18 Tiara 2 weeks ago. It's drinking very nicely indeed, although still some way to go. And so this is the latest edition. Michael Malan is now in the cellar, continuing the family heritage, and this is new from Simonsik, so I'll have that on the show as well in the next few weeks for a taste. But another addition to this endless array of incredible Chenin. I had some great Chenin last night. We did a beautiful dinner at the Old Oak with Erica Obermeyer, tasting 6 of her wines. The only one I hadn't had was her Chenin Blanc. She has added it to an already esteemed and award-winning collection, and it is a terrific addition. Erica's just making such good wine at the moment, such elegance, such precision, and such purity of fruit. And the reason she's getting all these accolades and 5 stars is simply because the wine is really that good. Speaking of wine that is rather good, the Nicholas Red Blend from Boschendal, Bubbles out of Boschendal. Why should you be buying those in particular? Well, at Norman Goodfellows, together with Dan Really Likes Wine, we've got a really cool competition running for the month of April. You could be off on the wine escape of a lifetime. Here's a quick look at what's up for grabs if you go shopping with Boschendal, Dan Really Likes Wine, and Norman Goodfellows this month. This is Boschendal Wine Estate, and this is going to be your home if you win one of the coolest prizes in wine this year. It's a majestic prize. Flights for 2 people down to the Cape if required, transfers out to Boschendal, 2 nights accommodation, lunch or dinner at both the deli and the Verve, a picnic if the weather allows, the opportunity to go horse riding, the chance to taste some of the finest vintages and memories to post away on social media for months to come. How to win this incredible prize? Simply go shopping at Norman Goodfellows, either in-store, online or through the Dan Really Likes Wine store, and buy any bottle of the Nicholas Red Blend or any bottle of Bubbles. Do so until the end of April and you could be on your way to Boschendal. So there we go, either in store, online, or on the Dan Really Likes Wine store, and voila, simply buying a bottle of wine, although you'll probably buy more than just the one, and you could be down to Boschendal for a couple of nights. Make it a Friday, Saturday for a weekend, enjoy the Friday night market, and enjoy what is one of the most beautiful estates with its sprawling and majestic gardens that we have in the winelands. All right, let's meet our guests for today. We head over to somebody who juggles a couple of different media platforms, both her own very successful blog with an Instagram account that suggests she's generally just having far too much fun, and combining those jobs effortlessly with a love of wine. So Renate Engelbrecht joins us with both Hello and Suitcases and Chardonnay. Lovely to have Renate with us on the show. And then Daléne Fourie joins us, who is probably now one of the most influential wine people in South Africa as the wine editor at News 24, with its huge readership that she now taps into and gets to celebrate wine with. Welcome to you both. Lovely to have you on the show, and thank you very much for joining me and celebrating a love of wine, which I know you both have, and which you in particular, Daléne, now get to celebrate with a lot of people. It's both a really exciting opportunity to be the News 24 wine editor, but it must also be just ever so slightly daunting and nerve-wracking because there are a lot of people who read News 24.
Absolutely. My hands are constantly sweating, but I've gotten such an amazing opportunity to tell the story of South African wine and the culture inherent to it that I just feel, I would be amiss if I didn't do the best that I possibly could to just get these stories out there. There's so much to tell.
And story, I think, is the fundamentally important word, and that's exactly what we try and do here on the show, because that's what people remember. That's what strikes a chord. It's what markets absolutely anything, and not just wine. And so you are telling these stories and are a storyteller, and it's obviously something you both love and are particularly good at. Where did that come from, both that love of storytelling and also that love of wine? And when did you see there was an opportunity to merge the two?
Well, for me, I studied journalism, so I always wanted to tell a story, and I've always been, particularly able to see an interesting story, in a kind of boring technical presentation. So I studied journalism, and then I started working for Port to Port, which at that time was actually a digital agency. So I was an account manager, and I basically fell into wine. I started having to write the newsletters, and through that I had to go out to the wine farms and actually find these stories. And I just absolutely fell in love with our winemakers. Their can't do it spirit, their inimitable spirit that they do have. And the fact that they make wine in South Africa, internationally viable, celebrated wines in South Africa, despite all of the struggles and difficulties just of normal life in South Africa, added to, nature and all of the different variables of making wine. So, it came to me, wine. But the storytelling has really been a very exciting thing for me to explore.
And there is a depth to wine in terms of the stories that it offers you. There's the wine itself, there's the estate or the terroir from which that wine comes. And I think probably most interestingly, a lot of the times, there are the people who are making that wine. So you've got so many stories you can tell. How on earth do you decide which ones to tell?
With great difficulty. So I have divided it into 4 categories for myself. So to focus on news, to focus on ratings, to focus on a little bit of history and background, because there is a plethora of historical facts and things to understand in order to appreciate the wines that are being made. And then obviously also the feature stories on the specific winemakers. So for me, it is about trying to be as open to all of our different wine regions, all of our different winemakers, the different varieties that we make. And I'm so lucky because South Africa has such a diverse, ability to make wines from all different varieties and all different wine regions. So I don't think I'm going to run out of a story anytime soon.
You certainly won't. There are endless stories to be told. There are also many angles from which to tell them. And you could be a bit of a Jay Rayner and occasionally, with great glee and much entertainment, tear somebody apart and make for great reading, but very tearful winemakers. It's certainly not something I've seen you do. But given you've got so many people who are reading, how do you manage your style and your approach to keep writing in I suppose, a positive and upbeat way, which is a lot of what you do, while still giving an honest appraisal to people reading the stuff that you're putting out about the quality of the wine or the impression that it gives you?
So I see myself basically as a journalist. So I ascribe to people who are wine critics and wine academics almost. So I read widely masters of wine's opinions from all over the world. And then I go out and I get the actual story from the winemaker themselves. So I do not see myself as a wine critic, but rather as a storyteller, as you said. So for me, it's more about offering all of the different points of opinion and allowing our readers to make their own decisions on the wine, on the story, on the farm, on the winemaker. So my goal is to bring them all of the points of information so that they can make their own decision.
Which I'm sure they're doing, and I'm sure you're giving you feedback about it as well. I'm going to jump back on that point in just a moment, but let's go over and say hello to Renate, who joins us as well as somebody who juggles 2 spaces. There's the more day-to-day and then the slightly more personal, if I've got it right. Renate, introduce us to both Hello and to Suitcases and Chardonnay, and how those emerged, how these have become your life and what you do.
Thank you, Dan, and thanks for having me on the show. It's very exciting to be here. So Hello Lifestyle is actually a national magazine which we've just launched just after COVID. It flows from the previous Hello Joburg, Hello Pretoria, Hello Cape Town magazine, and we've decided to merge it into one magazine. And yeah, it's been going very well with the publication. We are printing and we're very excited about that. And then with the challenges with COVID, obviously in the media industry, things were a bit tough. And I decided to also launch my blog, Suitcase and Chardonnay. And that really just came from who I am as a person and what I love to do and love to experience, basically including travel and fashion and food and wine and just general lifestyle stories. And like you mentioned, I really do like to make it a bit personal, especially on the blog, where the magazine is a bit more not that personal. So I get to do both, which is very exciting. And I get to write about things that I love.
Well, it shines through very clearly in the writing that you do, and the food and wine in particular. And I know many of us who are involved in food and wine, people who have should we say, more conventional day jobs often sneer that we're never doing any proper work. And yet, when you look at it, I see the sheer amount of content that you produce. Yes, it all looks fun and cool and glamorous, but there is an awful lot of hard work that goes into producing a consistent level of quality content that people are engaging with, enjoying, responding to, and making all of your time worthwhile.
Yes, I must say it is quite a busy schedule, and I often wonder how I get things done because I've got 2 toddlers at home as well. But I find that when you do something that you love, it's just so much easier to produce whatever you do. So yeah, that's probably why I get to do so many things in a day, because I love doing everything that I do.
And you wouldn't be doing them if you didn't love them, but you also wouldn't be doing them if there wasn't a sense of response and of people reading and engaging and being part of it. A very general and open-ended question, but broadly speaking, what sense do you get of South Africans generally, and not just their love of food and wine, which I think is quite established, but their understanding, their knowledge? Are people, as you see it, knowing more, understanding more, having a greater appreciation for how well we make wine, how good the quality is, and how discerning they are becoming as a result of knowing a bit more about the wine industry?
I do think people are starting to learn a bit more about wine, and I think it's because of all of these new restaurants popping up everywhere, especially now after the pandemic, and really good restaurants that really cater to people who enjoy the finer things in life, and really good cuisine coupled with good wine. And yes, I think we are so lucky in South Africa to have so many good wines that it's not difficult to pair, a dish with a very good wine. It's and also with a wine that is rather affordable, actually, because sometimes wine can be quite expensive. But in South Africa, we're so lucky to have wines that are good quality wines that are affordable as well.
What about the storytelling? We mentioned to Daléne a moment the challenge of finding stories to tell. What are wine estates or wine farms doing well, and then what are they doing not so well when it comes to providing stories and angles that people like yourself can jump on and use and turn into really cool and engaging content?
I think for me, it is really about the experience. So often, for me, a glass of wine would go with something that I experience as well. When you mentioned that it's about storytelling and what is my story about wine, I kind of also thought about where did it all start and what is my wine story. And I remember my first wine that I drank was, well, not my first wine, but the first one that I really enjoyed was with my father in Maatjiesfontein, and we finished the whole bottle in an evening, just enjoying really good food in that old hotel and experiencing just being together, just the togetherness. And that is what wine does. And I think on the wine farms, that's often the case because they've got these beautiful spaces and there's so many different ones that you never get bored because you can always go to another one or another one. And there's so much options because you've got wine farms that cater for little kids as well with these great jungle gyms and I don't know what else. And then you've got the luxury farms where you can really, go for a very nice spa treatment and experience really luxurious stays and everything. So I think it all depends on you as a person as well and your personal experience with wine. And that is what the wine farms does. Well, what they do right for me is to really give people an overall experience, not just the wine. It's with something else. It's about the stories that people are going to be able to tell afterwards.
I love the story with your dad there, and I'm going to tap into a few more of your recent wine experiences in a moment. Petra Peterson is watching the show over on Facebook. Petra, lovely to have you watching. She says, always love the topics and always tune in. I'm very glad to hear that, as you should, Petra, as you should. Daléne, the moment that was described there by Renate a few seconds ago with her dad, was there a light bulb moment for you with wine where there was just something about that bottle or that occasion or the meal or the company that really triggered a decision that, right, wine is not just something I'm helping to write a few press releases about, but it's really going to be a part of my life?
I don't think I can isolate one specific event that happened, because I have had so many meetings and interviews with all of these winemakers, but each one, the stories inherent to it, the way that they are contributing to South Africa through the wine industry, the way that it's not just about the wine for me. And I keep saying that, and it's because it is about the people working on the farm, the way that they are contributing to our economy, the way that internationally South African wine is being celebrated. I think it's one of the industries in South Africa that's really, making a difference, and something that we can be proud of, which in South Africa right now is a bit difficult, so it's something that there's always something good to say about South African wine. So I think that's something that always drew me to it, that it is a positive story about South Africa. And I am inherently proud of South Africa and just, want to contribute to that and see us grow on an international stage.
Well, let's get a couple of specific examples of that pride and where that joy in South African wine has been made very vividly apparent to you. You've had a little time on the job now, and there's already been plenty that's been published. And I love the fact that News 24 has a wine editor. What are one or two of the trips you've done, the people you've met, the wine experiences you've had over the last little while that have really moved you to feel so passionate about South African wine?
This weekend, or this past weekend, I met with Louis Strydom of Ernie Els, and I spent the whole day with him from sunrise on the Helderberg to sunset, and it was an incredible experience. I think it's also just because I absolutely love Helderberg. I am originally from Somerset West, so Helderberg does hold like a small part of my heart, but Louis and just his, the way that he's contributing to the Cape Winemakers Guild Protégé program. He is I believe he's the chairman of that, not of the guild, but of the Protégé program, and the way that they are giving back to our young generation of winemakers. And then obviously just the wine. Like, I have a very big penchant for Helderberg Reds, like the big Bordeaux blends, and he spent his life on the Helderberg, and every time they find nuances to it and how to evolve the wine, and there's always something new to discover, and you would never think that just from a little piece of land, So I think there is untold nuance to each little piece of land and the history inherent to it, how Ernie Els was established, how Louis was originally working for Rest en Vrede and then came to Ernie Els, and now Ernie Els is owned by Hans van Staff, which is then, also owns Stellenzicht and Alto, and how that still, allows them to grow the Helderberg persona. So there's a lot of stuff like that. It's just bringing them all together eventually in one big story.
And stories are, as we said earlier, something you do rather well. We're not the only ones who believe that. Greg Sherwood, watching from London, the king of the free lunch. It says, Daléne has a wonderful talent to tell uplifting wine stories. And if anybody would know that, it is Greg Sherwood. Telling these stories, getting to meet people who, for you as a wine writer now, are the rock stars. These are the Springboks if you're a rugby writer, or they're the Michael Jordans if you're an entrepreneurial writer. It's a really cool space to be part of. But you still, I don't think, Daléne, have quite made it to the top. Because if I remember a piece you did recently, I think you were talking about the Radfordale imports. You'd had a note from Ibn Sadi, who had to apologize because he just didn't have any wine for you. So clearly you've still got a little way to go to make your way up the pecking order.
No, well, with Ibn, I mean, I totally understand why he doesn't have any wine, because he has got an incredible sales model, and his wines, are internationally just venerated, I think. So, yeah, but I'm still waiting on the wait list for Ibn's wine.
I don't think it will take too long as this grows. Renata, what about some of the wine experiences you've had over the last while, where you've met a particular bottle of wine or a particular winemaker, and it's had a profound impact on you and your love of wine?
I must say I just returned from Cape Town, and I did try a couple of wines. We went to Brookdale Estate and tried some of their wines at their new bistro, coupled with some very nice dishes there, and that was quite nice. I must say another good experience was also at the Tuanni, which is an exclusive wine cellar that you need to book to go to. And there I was taken. Albie Koch took me through the cellar, and he showed me around, and that was also a very, very informative experience. They only make red wines, which was quite interesting, and some of the wines are really, at the higher price. So something that I wouldn't be able to afford myself, but really a very interesting experience. They do like an exclusive tour as well that you can book to taste some of their wines, which is quite spectacular. And then I also had lunch at Upper Union, a restaurant just very close to Cliff Street in Cape Town. And their chef Amory, she had me taste some of Spookberg wines, which was also, well, I actually just tasted one, but it was a very, very good Chardonnay. So that was probably my highlight of Cape Town.
That is really one of the benefits of doing something like this. They're not a huge number of journalists and writers who make vast fortunes from their craft and from their art, but the real richness comes in these experiences and getting to discover a new bottle of Spookberg. I think they've also got a wonderful old vine Palomino, which is particularly Moorish, or I think you were drinking some Lelude Bubbles not that long ago, where you're getting exposed to wine that maybe you wouldn't always order yourself or buy yourself or even have access to, but it's definitely one of the cool aspects of the job is constant education and introduction to wine.
Absolutely, yes. It's experiences that I would never have had if I hadn't done what I do. And yes, I kind of forgot about Lelude, which was also a very, very nice experience. Got to walk through their vineyards a bit as well, and just experience that beautiful setting in Franschhoek. So yeah, that was also another very, very good experience.
All right. We're going to share an experience in a moment, because I know you've got a bottle of wine to open and to taste, as does Daléne. Just before I ask you to open yours and tell us what you are drinking, Daléne, tell me a little bit about the feedback, about the response. You're on this vast platform with a lot of people. The world has not historically always been kind when it comes to giving feedback in an online space. What has the response been to the writing, to having a wine editor? And what has also the response of the industry been? Are you being besieged with requests on a daily basis to sample wine and visit vineyards and hang out with the people who make them?
I have just been welcomed by the industry. I'm so thankful for that. And I mean, I've just had incredible experience and feedback from the industry, and as well on the platform. I mean, obviously there can be negative commentary and things like that, but I think you should be open to constructive criticism. You should always be able to take something on board. So for me, it's about constantly striving to be better and constantly striving to tell them the best stories or get the most information for our audience. But more than that, I would love to just get more South Africans to drink wine and to understand what value we have only here. So I think I'm very fortunate with the feedback that I've gotten, both from the industry and on the platform so far. I mean, touch wood, I'm still scared every day that there's going to be someone saying that's absolutely wrong. But, you know, if that happens, then we'll take it from there. And I will ensure that I, you know, educate myself further or do whatever is necessary to, you know, to provide the best kind of commentary on wine in South Africa.
Well, a little bit of controversy never hurts the numbers, and it always stirs up a bit of debate, which can be very valuable in the long run for the wine industry. You've already told on News 24 through wine. You get to tell a little one today with a bottle of wine. I've asked our guests to choose a bottle and to explain why they've chosen it and what they're drinking and introduce it to us. So wine editor at 24, you terribly important wine person, what have you chosen? Why have you chosen it?
So I've chosen this because I was here today. So I went to Groenland today to meet Piet and Louise Jenkamp. They are 4th generation winemakers in the Bottlerij Hills of Stellenbosch. They're actually neighbors with Kaapstad. So I am drinking a red wine from there, which is a Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot, the 2017 vintage. They were actually introducing their new Chenin Blanc today at the tasting, which is actually made by Daléne of Kaapstad. So Daléne makes their white wines, and then Piet makes their red wines on the farm. They also have historically been producing grapes for KWV, for Kanonkop, I believe, and then also I think for Distel as well. So they're a big producer, over like 190 hectares, I believe. But it was lovely because I love Bottlerij Hills. It's one of these like more farmer-owned areas of Stellenbosch still, because I mean Stellenbosch has become very commercial and very with a lot of international investment. So it's like one of the family-owned strongholds of Stellenbosch, I can probably say. And it's really interesting to meet these 4th generation winemakers. It's so funny because Piet and Daléne Jr., you know, like they grew up together and now they're making wines and they are innovating and remaining relevant. So, I mean, it was really joyful to meet them. And this is beautiful red blend from the Bottlerij Hills.
It is a terrific area for Stellenbosch wine. If you've got a little bit of guidance from Daléne Statler, you are certainly not going to be in bad company. And I've actually seen, I think it was Bubbles Highland of Well Read magazine was mentioning something on a group I'm on today. So it's clearly a wine that's caught a little imagination, and I'm sure there'll be something about it on News 24 in the next little while. Lovely wine to share with us. Thank you very much, Daléne. Let's head over to Renate. What have you pulled out for us? What are you drinking this evening?
So I'm having a white wine. It's I've actually been discovering the old vine vintages, and this one it was special for me because it is called well, it is from Renate Engelbrecht. I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce that actually, but the wine's name is called Les Dames de 87, which is the year that I was born. So actually, it's 35-year-old vintage, and it's a Chardonnay, which I love. I'm lying. It's a Sauvignon Blanc, sorry, which I love too. And I just love the bottle as well. It's a beautiful bottle with beautiful artwork on it, and yeah, it's just a very good wine. So I haven't poured it yet, so I'm gonna pour it for myself, and then you can see the color as well. Here you go.
Now, this Renate is actually a wine I do know because I drank some of it yesterday. The Terre Paisible team was up. Adam Mason, formerly of Mulder Bosch, and worked out with Wendy at De Morganson, is making that wine. And it's not often we find old vine in a Sauvignon Blanc context. So wine, I agree. I very much enjoyed it yesterday, and it is so much fun, isn't it, Renate, when you get a wine like this, and it's just different. Here's old vine Sauvignon Blanc. We don't get that often. A wine with a lovely freshness, but a really complete wine as well, and you get to drink something it's just got a really cool story.
Yes, absolutely. And I also enjoy the fact that well, this wine in particular is a kind of a white wine that I would drink in winter as well. I'm usually one for drinking white wine in summer and red wine in winter, but this one I would actually enjoy during the winter time as well.
I think that's a really valuable addition to our understanding of a wine that you're going to see a bit of on Dan Really Likes Wine coming up in a few weeks' time. We spent some time filming yesterday with Adam and with Shirley van Veek, who oversees the marketing. It is a really cool wine. Renate Engelbrecht is watching the show and is going to attempt to test my Afrikaans, which is pretty much non-existent. Gaan nou eers 'n Chardonnay skunk. Mooi onderhoud. Thank you, Hein. Glad you're watching. Interesting. I think Greg Sherwood, who is watching the show as well, Greg wrote a really nice piece about that 1987 old vine Sauvignon Blanc from Terre Paisible, which I think is a wine brand, a wine estate we're going to hear a lot more of over the next little while. We are hoping that Tuanni Price will join us at some point in the show, but if not, we've got more than enough great company, including somebody who has got so much more to do. You've now found your feet. The stories are rolling out across the 24 platform. Do 24 together, individually, have a kind of broader philosophy of not just where you see the wine content going, but what your role is, what kind of almost custodian role of wine reporting that you have, given the sheer scale of the platform, Daléne?
So I think my overarching goal is to grow wine, the wine audience in South Africa, to educate the South African community about the wine that we do have here, and then also to entertain. Because I think that it can maybe become quite dry if it's only technical information, etc. So I think for me, it's also finding those intriguing stories that really kind of capture your attention and make people sit up and actually, listen and kind of get interested and make them want to explore more. I think that's basically what I want to do. I want to make people excited about wine, so excited that they will go out and explore on their own, and give them the tools they need or to understand what they're tasting and what to look for in a wine.
And from you said everybody's been really nice so far, which is great to hear. But from the feedback you get from people who are reading what you are writing and what you are producing, is there a sense that you're kind of hitting the right spot in terms of the level of technical inclusion of wine detail, the wine language? Are people generally happy with what they're reading, with what they're learning, with what they're discovering?
Yes, from what I've found, I mean, I've gotten a lot of comments where people say, oh my goodness, I didn't know that, and I think that's kind of what I'm going for. But I don't know, Dan, do you think that I'm hitting the right notes?
Aha. It's a very difficult one to answer because you've got such a broad audience, and I'm not sure there's another wine writer in South Africa who will have such a broad audience, because people who are logging on to 24 might be logging on to read a wine story, but they could see a link to a wine story because they've checked out a rugby result, or they want to see what Thabo Best has done this week, or what the news is, which I think can make it a bit challenging for you, but also offers you this wonderful opportunity to spread the gospel of wine to people who maybe aren't actively looking for it. And I think in that sense, you have struck a really good balance where the storytelling has led the way. So it's not writing that's awash with technical wine terms. I think you frame it really nicely. And I just enjoy reading the stories that you tell. And I think that's really how the wine industry has to sell itself and grow and get bigger, by telling really good stories. And that's what you're doing. And not just doing it really well, but enjoying it. So it's a terrific combination. And I think you're off to a flying start.
Thank you, and long may it last. I'm trying to hide all of the technical terms in the storytelling, so, but, let's see where it goes.
What about your space, Renate, particularly with the blog, with Suitcase and Chardonnay, which I think showcases both a really cool lifestyle and the fun that you have, but also has a definite mandate of sharing knowledge and understanding and allowing stuff that you've discovered to be passed on to broader people. We often think of the Instagram space or the blog space as being a little more casual, as not being as serious, but it's where so many people go for their information now. That's how we get entertained. So where's your sense of the balance between, well, here's Renate having loads of fun at a really cool wine estate, but also actually giving off some quite important, some quite valuable lessons from your experiences?
I think it's very important. I might be a blogger, but I also feel that it's a very big responsibility, because as a writer, you need to give the correct information, and people are often interested in a bit more information. People want to learn more, especially when it comes to wine. Yeah, the lifestyle and everything with that is great, but obviously, if you can tell them a nice, interesting tidbit about the wine that is on the estate, that's also, a great add-on. And I think in the end, what I wanted to achieve with my blog, and what I still want to achieve with it going forward, is to really produce quality content, and not just, airy-fairy content with pretty pictures and, beautiful videos, which is also part of it. But I think it's very important as a writer and a journalist to still produce good quality content that would level up to the kind of content that is produced by big publishing houses like Media 24 and other publishing houses. So it's very important to produce content that is accurate and that is quality content that people want to read.
It is a balance that needs to be struck. It's not always an easy one to do, but I think both of our guests today manage it particularly well. Michael Baudet is watching at the moment over on YouTube. Hello, great show today. Wine lovers in Europe are very interested in the themes of history, sustainability, wine tourism, and the efforts of the social upliftment of staff members and education. And I think there, Michael, you've summed up, again, both a challenge and an opportunity in wine writing. There is so much stuff you have to try and cover, but there's the opportunity to tell stories in so many different spaces, and a lot of them are far more than just about wine. They speak to so many other different areas. Before we go back and wrap up with Daléne, Renate, two-parter for you. What in the food and wine journey that you've had so far would count as the greatest experience, and what is top of that food and wine bucket list for you?
Oh my goodness, that's a very difficult question. Things change so quickly in the industry that you never know what you might find in the next few weeks. I don't think there's anything in particular. I think there are moments that you kind of experience that it's like you say with the storytelling. It's those moments that you want to tell the stories about that really count. And often that is usually with the people you love most. So it's funny, but the story that comes up is the story with me and my dad in Maatjiesfontein. And that was so long ago, but still it is so, it's so deep in my heart, because that's where my love for wine started. And just, the relationship building with the wine, and talking about the wine and talking about other things while having the wine. I think for me, having wine and food is about having it with people and truly experiencing that together. So it truly doesn't matter where it is. It's more about who it is with. So yes, Maatjiesfontein in that old hotel with a bottle of red wine and a real boerekost. Probably the moment I will remember best.
Well, yeah, there's a sparkle in your eye and just such a warmth of recollection as you tell that story for a second time, which clearly means it had such a profound impact on you. And I really, really enjoyed it. And thank you for sharing something quite so personal with us. It's a terrific memory to have, and obviously one that had such an impact. Very quickly, people want to follow you. Where can they read the Hello Lifestyle magazine, and how do they follow the blog and your adventures?
So they will find Hello Lifestyle Magazine on all the social media platforms, especially Facebook and Instagram, and they can just follow at Hello Lifestyle. And the blog is Suitcase and Chardonnay. It's just at Suitcase and Chardonnay.
And both of them are well worth looking up. And I think amongst those to be looking them up will be Lixon Ad. I hope I pronounced that right. Thank you for the wonderful and inspirational show. Always proud to be South African. Thank you very much. All right, let's go back to our wine editor as we wrap up. And I'll ask you the same question I did with Renate. Is there a food and wine, specifically wine experience that of all the ones you've had sits up above the others as one that really lit things up for you? And what is on that bucket list? What's the absolute, the ultimate wine experience you have yet to have, but hopefully will one day?
So my wine experience that really defined everything for me was when I was at a Kanonkop event, and Johan Kriege and Paul Kriege asked me to fire the cannon. And it was such it was so far removed from anything that I saw happening that evening. And I actually was unable to light it 3 times before I actually got it to, go. But I think that was the big wine event, if I can call it that really that will always stick in my mind as one of the big things that happened to me, was firing the cannon of Kanonkop. And what was the second part of that question? What do I want to experience still?
Yeah, what's left on that list? I'm sure there are many things left on the list, and wine will always give you so many more opportunities. But what's the one? If budget was no issue, if access and opportunity was there, where would you be? What would you be drinking, and why would it be top of the list?
I mean, like you said, there's still many things that I would like to explore, but there's one of the tasting the new wave Bordeaux wines that Bradford Dale imports, like that article that you referenced, just made me think, I really want to understand what all of the hype is about all of these French wines. So obviously I have tasted extensively, but I don't get access to the first growths or, anything enormous like that. So in the future, I would love to go to that wine museum in Bordeaux and kind of just experience those wines to just benchmark where we sit in the greater scheme of things.
And I think particularly in Bordeaux, people who do that from a South African perspective are pleasantly surprised that there's not quite as much of a gap as you might expect. In fact, in many cases, the wine is right up there on a similar scale. People want to engage a little more with the content. There are rather a lot of pieces of content on News 24. So what's the easiest way to find you, to find the stuff you're writing about, and to make sure we keep up to date with your wine adventures, Daléne?
So the wine vertical sits underneath the lifestyle, I don't know what you would call that, the lifestyle kind of stories. So within lifestyle, click on lifestyle, and then you will find wine as one of the categories.
All right, easy does it, and nice to get there. Hey guys, thank you both. It's been a fascinating hour with you for finding out how your wine journeys have brought you to where you are today. You're obviously just having so much fun with what you're doing, and I think that's a big part of what translates into the writing that you do. So keep it up. It's been great having some time with you today, and also reading everything you do. And yeah, maybe there'll be a return trip to Mikey's Fontaine in a few years' time, and possibly a story about a wine museum in Bordeaux. But between now and then, lots of great South African wine to celebrate. So thank you for doing that, and thanks for being part of the show today.
Thanks for having us, Dan.
Well, thank you.
There we go. Renate Engelbrecht, editor of Hello Lifestyle Magazine and the Suitcase and Chardonnay blog, and Daléne Fourie, who has the not inconsiderable task of running wine at News 24. both of them just really enjoying what they're doing and getting to drink great South African wine every day. There are worse things you could be doing. I'll be doing a lot of that over the next little while. We've got some very exciting stuff coming up, and on Monday's show we'll be making two big announcements. I'm going to be in Cape Town for something rather cool with the team at Culture, so keep an eye out for that on Monday. And Roland Peence will be joining me on the show. We have a first growth Bordeaux and Grand Cru Burgundy dinner coming up. It is full of some astonishing wine, and you could be part of it at a cost. I'll have details of that on Monday as I head up the West Coast, and amongst others, Gedeelte, talk to John Boer about the wine he is making, and catch up with Lisa Godwin from Friars Cove, which is undergoing a massive transformation and is delivering some wonderful wines in a quite unique part of the winemaking world. And one or two other guests from the West Coast will be with us as well. So that wraps us up for the show today. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, thanks again to Erica Obermeyer and the team of Ransley and Co. at the Old Oak for last night's 7-course extravaganza. Just some absolutely superb wine from Erica. And a big thank you to Renate and Daléne for joining us on the show today. Have a great evening. Keep drinking great South African wine. We'll see you back again live on Monday. Goodbye.